I stood there in the downpour, my shirt plastered to my skin, watching Maximus's silhouette emerge from the shadows of our old Brooklyn brownstone, his face a mask of quiet devastation that shattered the night. "Oliver," he whispered, his voice breaking like thunder. "I can't marry her, not when every beat of my heart still screams your name." That was the moment the world tilted, the fragile scaffolding of my carefully rebuilt life crumbling under the weight of what we'd buried. We'd been 22 then, wild and unbreakable in the fever of a New York summer, stealing kisses in Washington Square Park and dreaming of a future that didn't include the judgmental glares of his Midwestern family or the suffocating expectations of a world that pretended love like ours didn't exist. Maximus Hale, with his easy grin and those hazel eyes that could unravel me with a single glance, had been my everything. My anchor in the chaos of art school deadlines and the gnawing fear that being gay in America meant always fighting for scraps of normalcy. But normalcy was a thief, and it stole him from me on a crisp October afternoon in our senior year. We'd been tangled in the sheets of my cramped Williamsburg loft, the autumn sun slanting through the blinds like golden bars of a prison we'd yet to recognize. His phone buzzed incessantly on the nightstand, a harbinger we both ignored until he finally snatched it up, his laughter dying mid-breath. It was his mother, her voice tinny and insistent through the speaker. "Max, honey, your father's health is failing. He needs to see you settled with a family. Real family. Come home for Thanksgiving. Bring someone. Appropriate." I remember the way his shoulders tensed, the sheet slipping from his waist as he sat up, staring at the wall like it held the answers to a riddle neither of us could solve. "Ollie," he'd said, turning to me with eyes that begged for absolution. "They're counting on me. The farm, the legacy. It's all they've got left after Dad's heart attack. Can't just be the disappointment." We didn't fight that day. Fights were for people who had the luxury of anger. We were too scared, too in love to risk shattering what little we had. Instead, we dressed in silence, shared a pot of weak coffee on the fire escape, and watched the leaves swirl in eddies below like our unraveling promises. By Christmas, he was back in Iowa, introducing me in photos as my roommate from school, a euphemism that tasted like ash. And then the calls tapered off, first to weekly, then monthly until the last one came in February, his voice hollow over the line. "I met someone, Ollie. Her name's Emily. She's good for me, for them." I hung up and punched the wall until my knuckles split, the blood mixing with tears on the peeling paint. That was 10 years ago. I'd clawed my way through the aftermath in the only way I knew how, by pouring every jagged piece of my heart into my paintings. Now, at 32, I was Oliver Grant, moderately successful abstract artist with a loft in Bushwick that overlooked the same indifferent skyline, a string of forgettable dates that never quite filled the void, and a therapist who reminded me weekly that closure isn't a destination, it's a practice. But closure? That was a lie we tell ourselves to sleep at night. Because here I was on the eve of Maximus's wedding. His goddamn wedding to Emily, the woman who'd pinned him down with promises of picket fences and 2.5 kids. Standing on that same fire escape, the rain washing away the last remnants of my resolve. I'd gotten the invitation months ago. A crisp cardstock dagger slipped under my door like a cruel joke from the universe. "Join us in celebrating Max and Emily's union," it read, with a photo of them beaming on some Iowa porch swing, her hand on his knee like she owned the territory I'd mapped with my fingertips. I hadn't planned to go. Hell, I hadn't even RSVP'd. But the city had other ideas. A gallery show in Manhattan had kept me out late. The kind of night where champagne flows too freely and old wounds itch like fresh tattoos. By midnight, I was stumbling home, the subway rattling through my bones, when my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "It's me. I'm outside. Please." My heart seized, a vice grip that stole my breath. I fumbled the keys at the door, cursing the lock as if it were conspiring against me. And then there he was, Maximus, drenched and disheveled, his tuxedo shirt untucked, bow tie dangling like a noose half-tied. The wedding was in 12 hours, a dawn ceremony at some swanky Hamptons estate where his family had flown in from the heartland to toast the prodigal son returned to the fold. "Max," I choked out, the name tasting like forbidden fruit after all these years. He stepped forward, closing the distance in 2 strides, and before I could protest, his arms were around me, pulling me into the kind of embrace that erased time. He smelled of bourbon and salt. Tears or rain, I couldn't tell, and his body against mine was both salvation and damnation, the muscle memory kicking in like we'd never parted. "I couldn't do it," he murmured into my neck, his breath hot against my skin. The rehearsal dinner, Emily's vows. It all felt like a eulogy for us, for who I was before I let them carve me into something safe. We stumbled inside, the door slamming behind us like a judge's gavel. My loft hadn't changed much. Canvases stacked against the walls, the faint scent of turpentine and takeout lingering in the air. But to him, it must have been a time capsule. He pulled back just enough to look at me, his hazel eyes searching mine with the desperation of a man on the edge of a cliff. "Tell me to leave, Ollie. Tell me I'm a coward, and I'll go. I'll walk out that door and marry her at sunrise. Pretend this was just cold feet." But I didn't. God help me, I couldn't. Instead, I cupped his face, thumbs brushing away the rain from his cheeks, and whispered the truth we'd both been running from. "You've always been my home, Max, no matter how far you wandered." We didn't kiss, not yet. That would have been too easy, too incendiary for the storm brewing inside us. Instead, we sank onto the worn leather couch, knees touching, and the words poured out like the rain outside. His father's declining health, the pressure of the family farm teetering on bankruptcy, Emily's quiet insistence that she could fix him if he just tried harder. "She's not a villain," he said, voice cracking. "She's kind, Ollie. She deserves better than this." And me? I told him about the gallery openings that felt hollow without him critiquing my brushstrokes. The pride parades I'd marched in alone, waving a flag that fluttered like a white one of surrender. "I thought I'd moved on," I admitted, staring at the floorboards scarred from our old dance parties. "Dated a curator once, tall, intellectual type. But every time he laughed, I heard yours echoing in my head." Hours slipped by in that confessional haze, the city humming indifferently below. Dawn crept in, painting the room in bruised purples and golds, and with it came the first cracks in our fragile reunion. His phone buzzed relentlessly. Emily's texts escalating from "Where are you?" to "Max, please, the officiant's here." Each vibration was a reminder that this night, this stolen interlude, was borrowed time. "I have to go," he said finally, standing with the reluctance of a soldier facing the front lines. But as he reached for his jacket, I grabbed his wrist, the pulse there racing like a trapped bird. "Don't," I begged, the word raw and unadorned. "Stay. Fight for us this time." His eyes welled, a dam breaking after years of careful containment. What if fighting means losing everything? My family, the life they built for me. It's all I've known how to be. "Then lose it?" I said, pulling him close, our foreheads touching in that rooftop echo I couldn't yet foresee. "Because holding on to their version of you is killing the man I love." He stayed. Against the odds, against the vows waiting in the Hamptons. He chose the fire escape and the rain and me. We talked until the sun rose fully, mapping out a future that was equal parts terror and hope. Therapy for him. A clean break letter to Emily. Maybe even a road trip west to shake the ghosts of Iowa from our heels. It felt like victory, tentative and trembling. The kind forged in the quiet hours when the world sleeps. But victories in love, especially ours, are never clean. As the morning light strengthened, a knock echoed through the loft, sharp, insistent, like fate knocking twice to collect its due. The knock rattled the doorframe, a thunderclap in the fragile peace we'd carved from the night. Maximus froze, his hands still in mine, the warmth of his skin a lifeline I wasn't ready to release. "Ignore it," I murmured, but we both knew we couldn't. Not when the air thickened with the scent of impending reckoning. He crossed the room in 3 strides, peering through the peephole with the wariness of a man who'd spent a decade dodging landmines. His face paled, the color draining like ink in water. "It's Emily," he whispered, turning to me with eyes wide as saucers. "And my brother. How did they?" The pieces clicked. The rehearsal dinner, his sudden vanishing act, the frantic calls he'd silenced on the couch. Someone must have pieced it together. A shared location ping, a mutual friend with loose lips. New York was a village when secrets wanted out. Before he could decide, the door shuddered under another assault. "Max, open up. We know you're in there." Emily's voice, usually soft as prairie grass, cracked with betrayal, laced with the Midwestern twang that had once charmed me during their obligatory holiday video calls. Maximus's hand trembled on the knob, his gaze flicking to me like a plea for permission he didn't need. "Ali, go," I said, the word tasting like defeat even as I forced a nod. "Handle it. I'll be here." He opened the door and the storm rushed in. Not rain this time, but human fury wrapped in a cream linen dress and a brother's accusatory scowl. Emily Hale, no, soon to be Hale if the universe had its way, stood there, her blonde bob impeccable despite the early hour, makeup smudged only at the corners of her eyes where tears had escaped. Beside her loomed Ethan, Maximus's older brother, all broad shoulders and farm-hardened jaw, the family enforcer who'd driven the rental car through the night from the Hamptons. "Maximus James Hale," Emily hissed, stepping inside without invitation, her heels clicking like judgment on the hardwood. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The guests are arriving. Your parents are in hysterics. Your father had to take his nitro because he thinks you're dead in a ditch somewhere." Ethan crossed his arms, blocking the doorway like a sentinel. "We traced your phone. Bro figured you'd pull something stupid like this. But her." His eyes landed on me, narrowing into slits of recognition. "The roommate? After all this time." The air sucked out of the room, leaving us gasping in the vacuum. Maximus stepped between us, a human shield fraying at the edges. Ethan, it's not what you think. I just needed space. Cold feet, that's all." "Liar." Emily's voice broke, a sob escaping as she clutched her phone, the screen glowing with unanswered texts. "I saw the address. This is his building. Oliver Grant. The one you swore was ancient history." She turned to me then, her blue eyes blazing with a hurt that mirrored my own from a decade past. "What did you do? Whisper sweet nothings. Remind him of the good old days while he was supposed to be committing to us." I opened my mouth, but words failed, the eloquence that fueled my artist's statements evaporating under her gaze. What could I say? That I'd done nothing but exist, a gravitational pull he'd never escaped? That love like ours wasn't a choice but a current, relentless and undertow strong? Maximus reached for her, but she recoiled, the distance between them yawning like the Grand Canyon. "I love you, Em. I do. But this marrying you when my heart's been half buried elsewhere. It's not fair to you. Or me." Ethan snorted, a sound like gravel under boots. "Fair? You've got Dad's legacy on the line, Max. The farm's mortgaged to hell after the drought. Marrying Emily ties us to her family's agribusiness. Saves everything. And you throw it away for, what, a fling with your college fuckboy?" The slur landed like a slap, echoing off the canvases that chronicled my solitude. Maximus whirled on him, fists clenched. "Don't you dare. Oliver's more man than you'll ever understand, Ethan. He's the one who saw me, really saw me, when I was just some scared kid hiding from who I am." Emily laughed, bitter and brittle. "Who you are? You're the man who proposed to me on a beach in Maui, Max. Who talked about kids and barbecues and a life together. Was that all bullshit? A cover for this?" "No." He raked a hand through his hair, pacing the room like a caged wolf. "It was real. You're real. But so is this." He gestured wildly between us, his eyes locking on mine with a desperation that twisted the knife. "I thought I could bury it and play the part. But last night, coming here, it ripped the bandage off. I can't pretend anymore." The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the distant wail of a siren slicing through the morning haze. Emily sank onto the arm of the couch, her posture deflating like a punctured tire. "I knew," she whispered, more to herself than us. "From the start. The way you'd zone out during dinners, staring at your phone like it held ghosts. I thought it was work stress, the farm. But it was him, wasn't it? Always him. Maximus knelt before her, taking her hands in his, hands that had once traced the lines of my spine. I'm so sorry. You deserve the world, Em. Someone who can give it to you without reservations. Not this half-life. She pulled away gently, standing with a dignity that shamed us all. And what about your family? Your father? He's pinned his hopes on this wedding like it's the second coming. You think they'll just nod and say, "Sure, son, follow your bliss." Ethan grunted in agreement, his stance unyielding. She's right. Dad's not long for this world, Max. You bail now, you're not just breaking her heart. You're dooming the farm. Us. The weight of it pressed down, a familial anvil that had crushed lesser men. I watched Maximus fracture before my eyes, the boy I'd loved warring with the son he'd become. I need time, he said finally, voice hoarse, to figure this out. Tell them the flu hit hard. Postpone. Emily's laugh was hollow. Postpone? It's a wedding, not a dentist appointment. She glanced at me then, not with hate, but a weary pity that stung worse. You, she said softly, if you love him, really love him, make him whole, not broken. With that, she swept out, Ethan trailing like a shadow, the door clicking shut with finality. Maximus slumped against the wall, sliding to the floor in a heap of tuxedo and tears. I joined him, our shoulders brushing in silent solidarity. What now? I asked, the question hanging like smoke. We fight, he replied, lifting his head to meet my gaze. For us, but first, coffee, and maybe a plan that doesn't end in pitchforks and disownment. We laughed then, a shaky sound that bridged the chasm, and as I brewed the pot, strong, black, like the resolve hardening in my chest, I realized this was just the opening salvo. The real war was coming, waged not in bedrooms but in boardrooms and family dinners, across state lines and generational grudges. But for the first time in 10 years, I wasn't fighting alone. The day unfolded in a blur of damage control. Maximus fielding calls from the wedding planner, spinning tales of food poisoning that fooled no one but bought us 24 hours. I cleared my schedule, canceling a studio session with the brutal efficiency of someone torching bridges. By noon, we were on the move, not to the Hamptons, but to a nondescript diner in Midtown, the kind with vinyl booths scarred by decades of confessions. Over greasy eggs and bottomless Joe, we sketched the battlefield. Iowa first, he said, stabbing a fork into his hash browns like a general plotting advances. Face Dad head-on. Tell him the truth, no sugarcoating. My stomach nodded. I'd met Harlan Hale only once, at a tense Thanksgiving where his handshake had been limp and his eyes appraising, as if measuring my worth in bushels of corn. And Emily? I'll talk to her alone, apologize properly, maybe, help her find her way out of this mess too. Noble, that was Maximus, always the protector even when it cost him. We lingered until the lunch rush thinned, the diner's jukebox crooning Springsteen like a soundtrack to our rebellion. Born to Run hit as we stepped into the autumn chill, and he grabbed my hand, lacing our fingers right there on the sidewalk, uncaring of the stairs. It was a small act, seismic in its simplicity, a declaration that the world could gawk all it wanted. Back at the loft, reality intruded via FedEx. The wedding bands, delivered early in a velvet box that Maximus hurled across the room. It skittered under the couch, a metallic clink echoing our unresolved chaos. What if they hate me? He asked, voice small as he retrieved it, turning the plain gold circle over in his palm. Then they hate me too, I replied, pulling him into my lap on the floor, our bodies fitting like puzzle pieces long separated. We're in this, Max, against all odds. We spent the afternoon in tentative domesticity, him scrolling farm reports on his laptop, me sketching him from memory, the lines of his jaw sharper now with worry. Dusk fell early, the city lights winking on like conspirators, and as we ordered Thai from the place down the block, his phone rang again. Emily. He answered on speaker, the loft filling with her measured calm. I told them it's off. Blamed the caterer salmonella scare. Your parents are furious. but they'll survive. Pause heavy as lead. Max, I wish you happiness. Truly. But don't call me until you've sorted your soul. The line went dead, leaving us in reverent quiet. Gratitude swelled in my chest, mingled with guilt for the collateral damage. She's stronger than I deserve, he murmured, setting the phone aside. Stronger than both of us. I agreed, and in that moment, I saw the humanistic thread weaving through our mess. Not just our love, but the grace of those we'd wounded, choosing release over revenge. Night deepened, and with it, the intimacy we'd postponed. No grand gestures, just shared breaths on the couch, his head on my shoulder, my fingers carting through his hair as we watched the credits roll on some forgotten rom-com. Tomorrow, he said sleepily, we drive to Iowa. Face the music. I kissed his temple, tasting salt and possibility. Together. But as sleep claimed him, my mind raced ahead to the heartland horizon, where family ties bound tighter than steel, and love like ours was still a radical act. The odds stacked against us felt insurmountable. Yet here we were, defiant, entwined, on the cusp of dawn. Little did I know, the betrayal waiting in those amber waves of grain would test us in ways rain and recriminations never could. The highway unspooled before us like a vein of blacktop pulsing toward the heartland, the rental car's engine humming a monotonous dirge to our westward pilgrimage. Maximus drove, his profile etched against the passing billboards, fields of corn giving way to endless sky, the kind of vastness that made a man feel both insignificant and invincible. I'd sketched him like this once, in charcoal on a napkin during a road trip to the Finger Lakes. But that was before the fractures, before the years that had weathered us like driftwood. We'd left New York at first light, the city shrinking in the rearview like a bad dream we hoped not to revisit. My loft felt like a sanctuary we'd barricaded, the door locked against the fallout. Emily had texted coordinates for a neutral drop-off point in Pennsylvania, where she'd collect her things from the Hamptons without further spectacle. A mercy I hadn't earned but accepted with bowed head. You okay? Maximus asked, his hand finding mine across the console, a touch that grounded me amid the vertigo of velocity. I squeezed back, tracing the calluses on his palm from farm work he'd never fully shaken. Peachy. Just plotting how to charm your dad into not disowning you with a pitchfork. He chuckled, low and rueful, the sound easing the knot in my gut. Harlan Hale doesn't charm easy, but he's got a soft spot for underdogs. Maybe pitch yourself as the scrappy artist saving his son's soul. We stopped in Ohio for gas and bad coffee, the station's fluorescent buzz underscoring our stilted small talk, weather, podcasts, the Cubs' slim playoff chances. Beneath it simmered the unspoken. The wedding's wreckage, the calls from his mother that he'd let go to voicemail, each one a siren song of guilt. She thinks I'm having a breakdown, he confessed over stale donuts, crumbs dusting his jeans. Blames the city. Too much concrete. Not enough God. I wiped his chin with a napkin, the gesture intimate, automatic. Let her. We'll show them gods in the details. Like two fools chasing love across state lines. By nightfall, we crossed into Iowa, the air shifting to that fertile, loamy scent that clung like memory. The Hale farm sprawled on the outskirts of Ames, 200 acres of soybeans and heartache. The house a sturdy Victorian relic with wraparound porch and ghosts in every creek. We pulled up under a harvest moon, gravel crunching like bones under tires, and there they were. Harlan in his recliner on the porch, oxygen tank hissing softly, and beside him Lorraine, her apron twisted in white-knuckled hands. Maximus killed the engine, but neither of us moved. Ready? He whispered. As I'll ever be. We stepped out into the chill, the screen door banging open as Ethan emerged, shotgun propped casual-like on his shoulder. Not loaded, I hoped, but the symbolism landed heavy. Dad, Mom, this is Oliver, Maximus said, voice steady as he took my hand, lifting it like a flag of truce. The man I love, the reason I couldn't go through with the wedding. Lorraine gasped, a hand fluttering to her throat, while Harlan's eyes, faded blue, sharp as ever, fixed on our joined fingers. Well, he rasped after an eternity that stretched like taffy. Reckon we got some talking to do. Come inside. Coffee's hot. It was a start, fragile as eggshell, but we'd take it. The kitchen table groaned under the weight of history. Faded photos of Maximus as a gap-toothed kid on a tractor. Emily's engagement portrait now an awkward relic by the salt shaker. We sat in a circle of tension. Lorraine pouring mugs with trembling hands. Ethan looming like a storm cloud. Start from the beginning, Harlan commanded. His wheeze underscoring the authority he'd wielded for decades. Maximus did, his words tumbling out in a torrent. The college nights in New York, the fear that had driven him home, the slow suffocation of pretending. I thought marrying Emily would fix it, he admitted, eyes downcast. Make me the son you needed. But it was killing me, Dad. Piece by piece. Lorraine wept silently, dabbing her eyes with a dish towel. We just wanted you happy, baby. Safe. I know, Maximus said, reaching for her. And I am now. With him. All eyes turned to me, and I swallowed the lump in my throat, channeling every ounce of New York grit. Mr. and Mrs. Hale, I love your son. Not in spite of who he is, but because of it. The farm, your legacy. It's part of him, and I'll fight for that too. But burying his truth? That's no legacy worth saving. Harlan leaned back, the chair creaking in protest. Boy, he said, pointing a gnarled finger my way. You talk pretty, but love don't pay bills. That merger with Emily's folks. It's the lifeline we need. Ethan jumped in, voice booming. Exactly. You think coming out fixes the foreclosure notice? Dad's worked his fingers to the bone. Enough. Harlan's cough cut him off. A wet rattle that silenced the room. He studied me then, long and unblinking. Oliver Grant. Max mentioned you once or twice. Artist, right? Seen your work in that fancy magazine. Swirls of color. Like a tornado in paint. I nodded, stunned. Yes, sir. He grunted. A sound that might have been approval. Tornadoes tear things up, but they clear the deadwood too. Maybe that's what we need. Turning to Maximus, his voice softened. Son, if this is your truth, live it, but don't you dare abandon us. Farm needs you, needs both of you if you're willing to. The offer hung there, olive branch extended over the chasm. Maximus's eyes glistened, and he nodded fiercely. We are, Dad. Every weekend, holidays, whatever it takes. Relief washed through the kitchen, tentative hugs exchanged. Lorraine's apple pie unearthed from the freezer as a peace offering. Ethan thawed slowest, clapping Maximus on the back with a gruff, Don't fuck this up, little bro. But even he managed to nod my way. We crashed in Maximus's old room that night. The twin bed a cruel joke that forced us spoon together. His heartbeat syncing with mine in the dark. That went better than I dreamed, he whispered, lips brushing my ear. Don't jinx it, I teased. But sleep came easy, lulled by the wind in the eaves and the promise of dawn chores. Betrayal, though, wears many masks, and it arrived not with fanfare, but a quiet email the next morning, while Maximus was out mending fences with Ethan. I was in the den, nursing coffee and sketching the barn silhouette, when my phone pinged. A message from an unknown sender. Subject line for your eyes only. Curiosity clicked it open, and the world grayed at the edges. Attached was a grainy photo. Us, on the fire escape that first night. Rain blurring the lines but not the truth of our embrace. Below it, a note in Emily's precise script. I followed you that night. Saw enough. If you want to keep this from the Hales and the press, given your fame, wire $50,000 to this account by week's end. Or I go public. Call it payback for the life you stole. My hands shook, the mug clattering to the saucer. Blackmail. From the woman we'd pitted. The one who'd extended grace. It was betrayal distilled. Not just of Maximus, but of the fragile bridge we'd built. How had she known? A pie? Desperation-fueled stalking? The why mattered less than the venom. She'd weaponized her pain, turning victim into viper. I deleted it, heart pounding, but the poison lingered. Tell Maximus? Risk shattering the Hale truce before it solidified? Or pay, and let this shadow taint our fresh start? The farm's creak outside mocked me. a reminder that some odds were rigged from the jump. When Maximus returned, mud-splattered and grinning, I forced a smile, tucking the secret deep. "Missed you," he said, pulling me close. "Always do." I lied, the words ash on my tongue. The climax loomed, not in grand gestures, but in the quiet rot of unspoken truths, and I wondered if love could weather a storm of its own making. The days blurred into a rhythm of reconciliation and restraint. The farm's demands a welcome distraction from the email gnawing at my insides like a persistent itch. Mornings started with dew-kissed fields, Maximus and I hauling hay bales under Harlan's watchful eye. My city-soft hands blistering as I learned the grunt of real labor. "Good on ya, Oliver," he'd wheeze from his porch perch, a rare smile cracking his lined face. "Art's fine for dreamin', but dirt's where truth lives." Lorraine folded me into her kitchen orbit, teaching me pie crust lattices and the art of slow-simmered chili, her initial reserve thawing into tentative affection. "You make him light up," she confided one afternoon, rolling dough with rhythmic precision, "like he used to, before the weight settled." Ethan remained the outlier, his grunts of approval during fence-mending sessions the closest he came to endorsement. But even he shared a beer on the porch one dusk, muttering, "Treat him right or I'll bury you in the back 40. Maximus bloomed in it all. The prodigal returned, not reformed but revealed. We'd steal moments in the barn loft, kisses tasting of earth and exertion, his laughter echoing off the rafters as we plotted expansions. Agritourism weekends where my paintings could hang in a converted silo, drawing city folk to the heartland. "Our legacy," he'd say, hazel eyes alight, "blending your chaos with my roots." But chaos has a way of circling back, and mine arrived on the 5th day, a Tuesday etched in relentless sun. I'd slipped away to the guest room, now our room, with my sketchpad propped on the quilt. For a moment's solitude, the email's account details burning a hole in my wallet app. 50 grand. It was half my last gallery advance. A hit that would stall my next show, but silence bought peace. Or so I told myself as I initiated the transfer, fingers hovering over confirm like a man on a ledge. The door creaked and there was Emily, framed in the sunlight like a specter in khakis and a sensible blouse, her hair pulled back in a no-nonsense ponytail. "Oliver," she said, voice cool as well water, stepping inside uninvited. "I figured you'd cave quietly." Rage surged, hot and unbidden. "You followed us? Blackmailed me? What the hell, Em? I thought you were better than this." She closed the door softly, leaning against it with arms crossed, a mirror of Ethan's defensive stance. "Better? You waltz in, upend my life, and I'm the villain." Her laugh was sharp, edged with mania. "I loved him, Oliver. Planned our forever. And you? You're the ghost that haunted us from day one." I stood, the phone clattering to the nightstand. "So punish me. Not him. Not his family." Her eyes softened fractionally, a crack in the armor. "It's not punishment. It's survival. My parents cut me off when the wedding tanked. Embarrassment to the brand. They called it. That money, the seed for my own start. Yoga studio in Des Moines. Clean break." Sympathy warred with fury. She was no monster, just a woman scorched by the same fire that warmed us. "Talk to him," I urged, stepping closer. "He's offered help, real help, not this snake oil extortion." She shook her head, blonde strands escaping like doubts. "I can't face him. Not yet. Just pay and we're square. No one gets hurt." The transfer completed with a chime, damning as a death knell. 50,000 vanished into the ether, my financial security a casualty of her desperation. "Done," I said flatly. "Now get out. And stay gone." Emily nodded, a ghost of gratitude flickering before she slipped away, the door latching with a click that echoed my hollowed core. I sank onto the bed, head in hands, the betrayal's aftertaste bitter as bile. Had I just enabled her fracture, or mended our own? The line blurred, humanistic in its grayness. No heroes, only humans limping forward. Maximus found me there an hour later, concern etching his brow. "You look like you wrestled a combine." Everything okay? I forced levity, pulling him down beside me. Just allergies to authenticity. Missed you in the field. We made love then. Not the frantic reclaiming of that rainy night, but slow, deliberate, an affirmation amid the uncertainty. His body over mine, breaths mingling in the quilted dark, was a sacrament, sealing vows unspoken. Afterward, tangled and sated, I almost confessed, the words bubbling like effervescence, but fear clamped them down. Not yet, I thought. Let this peace linger. The climax crested that weekend, at a family barbecue thrown in uneasy celebration of new beginnings. Neighbors milled about with potato salad and pitchers of iced tea. Their whispers a low hum, heard about the wedding. City boy. Huh? Harlan held court from his lawn chair, regaling tales of '89 floods, while Lorraine fussed over platters, her smile brittle but genuine. Maximus and I worked the grill, flipping burgers with tongs that felt like extensions of our synced hands. See, he murmured, hip-bumping mine. We're winning them over. Then Ethan approached, face thunderous, a printed email clutched in his fist. The same one Emily had sent me, forwarded anonymously with a note. Protect the family. He's lying. What the fuck is this, Max? Blackmail? From her? And you're covering for him? The yard hushed, forks pausing midair. Maximus paled, tongs clattering to the ground. Ethan, it's not. Save it. Ethan thrust the paper at me. You bought her off? With what, his trust fund? Dad's sick, man. We can't afford scandals. Harlan struggled up, oxygen hissing. Enough hollerin'. Inside. Now. The kitchen became tribunal, Lorraine wringing her apron as accusations flew. Maximus defended me fiercely. Ollie protected us. She came to him, not me. But doubt seeded, Harlan's gaze turning skeptical. Money changes hands in the dark, he rasped. Truth don't hide. Betrayal layered upon betrayal. Emily's greed, my secrecy, Ethan's paranoia. Maximus turned to me, eyes pleading. Tell them. Everything. The dam broke. I spilled it, the photo, the demand, the transfer, voice cracking under the weight. Silence fell, profound and judgmental. Lorraine gasped, hand to mouth. Ethan cursed under his breath. Harlan, though, surprised us all. Foolish, he said. But brave. You shielded my boy. That's kin. Relief crested, but the damage lingered, trust fractured like fine china. As dusk fell, Maximus and I retreated to the porch swing, the party's murmur fading. Why didn't you tell me? He asked, voice soft with hurt. Feared it'd break us, I admitted, head on his shoulder. Before we even started. He tilted my chin, kissed gentle as absolution. We're stronger than fear, Ollie. Remember that. Yet as stars pricked the velvet sky, Emily's shadow loomed. A final act pending. Her silence bought but not guaranteed. The real storm brewed not in skies, but souls, and against those odds, our love teetered on love's own precipice. The aftermath of the barbecue clung like humidity, thick and oppressive, as autumn deepened into Iowa's reluctant winter tease. Leaves skittering across fields like fleeing refugees, the air crisp with the promise of frost. The farm adapted, as farms do. Ethan channeled his anger into overtime shifts, fortifying silos against the coming chill. Lorraine baked through her bewilderment, pies piling up like unspoken apologies. Harlan, ever the patriarch, called a family meeting the next dawn, his oxygen tank a steady metronome to our confessions. We've all been played, he declared from his kitchen throne, gnarled hands steepled. Emily's hurt turned toxic. Ain't excusing it, but understanding it. Oliver, you did right by payin'. Max, you should have trusted sooner. Ethan, ease up on the vigilante. We're Hales, we bend, don't break. It was grace, unearned and profound, the humanistic core of Midwestern resilience. Not blind forgiveness, but a collective exhale, shoulders squaring for the haul ahead. Maximus squeezed my knee under the table, a silent we made it, and for a breath I believed him. But Emily wasn't done. 2 days later, as Maximus and I drove back to New York, our compromise splitting time between lofts and legacy. The call came. I was at the wheel this time, prairies flattening into interstates, when his phone erupted. Unknown number. He answered, speaker on habit, and her voice slithered through. Max, it's me. One last thing. The car swerved slightly, my grip tightening on the wheel. Ing? How? Doesn't matter. Static crackled, or maybe tears. I got your money. Used it to buy out my lease, start fresh. But I need to see you. Both of you. Closure, or whatever they call it. Suspicion coiled in my gut, but Maximus's face softened. That protector instinct, unquenchable. Where? Des Moines. That coffee shop on Walnut. Noon tomorrow. We detoured. The city of spires and steeples, a neutral ground bathed in watery November sun. The shop was a hipster outpost in farm country. Exposed brick, pour-overs, the irony of avocado toast amid cornfields. Emily waited in a corner booth. Slimmer than I remembered, dark circles under her eyes like bruises from invisible fists. No venom now, just exhaustion, a woman unmoored. Thanks for coming, she said as we slid in opposite, her fingers twisting a napkin into shreds.
I'm sorry.
The email, the photo, it was panic. My life's in ruins, and I lashed out. Maximus reached across, but I stilled him with a glance. Apology noted, I said evenly. But why now? What's the angle? None. She slid a thumb drive across the table, innocuous as a keychain. Everything. The photo, backups, my rants in a journal. Delete it. I'm done. He pocketed it, relief etching his features. We can help.
No.
Her smile was sad, genuine. I need to stand on my own. Yoga, maybe counseling. Figure out who I am without the fixer role. She paused, eyes flicking to me. You too. You're real. Terrifyingly so. I see it now. Just don't waste it. We talked then, not as adversaries but survivors, sharing war stories of expectations and escapes. She confessed the proposal's doubts, the nights she'd Googled husband in love with ex. The relief masked as rage when he'd bolted. I hated you, Oliver, she admitted. But mostly myself, for not seeing sooner. Humanity in the raw. Her vulnerability a mirror to our own, reminding that betrayal's sting fades when met with candor. By coffee's end, hugs were exchanged. Awkward, healing, and she walked out lighter, the door chiming like a benediction. Back on the road, Maximus exhaled a decade's tension. It's over, truly. New York welcomed us with indifferent sprawl, the skyline a jagged promise kept. My loft, once a solo shrine, now echoed with our domestic duet. His boots by the door, my paints mingling with his farm journals on the table. We dove into logistics, visas for farm stays, a joint exhibit blending my abstracts with his photographs of amber waves. Harlan called weekly, progress reports laced with gruff pride. Ethel from church asked about you boys, told her you're settlin' fine. Climax resolved not in explosion, but erosion, the slow sculpting of odds into allies. Yet emotion crested one frigid December eve, atop that Bushwick rooftop where rain had baptized our restart. Snow flurried now, fat flakes catching in street lamp glow, the city a muffled symphony below. Maximus pulled a box from his coat. Not velvet, but plain pine, carved with Iowa motifs. Inside, 2 silver bands, etched with coordinates. Our fire escape latitude. Not a proposal, he said, kneeling anyway, voice thick. A promise. Against all odds, Ollie, will you build this life with me? The messy, beautiful, bi-coastal one. Tears blurred the flakes on his lashes. Yes, I choked, slipping the ring on, the metal cool then warming like our clasped hands. 1,000 times. We kissed under the flurry, the world fading to white, a romantic veil over dramatic scars. No tragedy here, but a humanistic happy. Imperfect, earned, the kind where betrayal's echo strengthens rather than shatters. Years later, at the farm's first Hale and Grant Harvest Art Fest, with Harlan beaming from his chair, cancer in remission, a miracle of grit. Lorraine serving pie to diverse crowds, Ethan toasting our silo gallery. To love that pays the mortgage. I looked at Maximus across the meadow, our rings glinting in sunset, and knew we'd chosen right. Against all odds, we'd chosen us. And in that choice, found home. Not a place, but a heartbeat, shared and unyielding.